Well, Danny, it is mid-October. You know what that means. World Series right around the corner. We got the gridiron is back. James Harden isn't reporting to practice as usual. So sports.
Another James Henderson is playing before a crowd of 90 people in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, like we are. Sports, they are up and running. You know, things are great.
Now, Tyler, I just want to say, for our audience, this is not the most hyper masculine podcast, but we're about to enter some real drunk dad yelling at the TV territory, I think.
Yeah, so I kind of want to talk about the highs and lows of DMV sports, and let's talk about the highs for a little bit.
Which ones?
the O's. The Orioles, Baltimore Orioles had a great season. It was their first Orioles postseason appearance since 2016.
And how did that go?
Well, yeah, hold on. let me cook. We'll get to the lows.
Fair enough. Sorry.
First time they won their division since 2014. First time they've won 100 games since 1980. Gunnar Henderson. Who doesn't love this guy? Adley Rutschman. Come on. All right. So it's playoff time. Texas Rangers. We could take those guys out. We lost game 1. No big deal. We'll get them back in game 2. We lost game 2. Well, that's not great. That kind of sucks. But you know what? Game 3, the birds are coming to Texas, baby.
Do or die, do or die.
Do or die. This is the moment when they make the movie about the fantasy run to the World Series. This is going to be the pivotal scene. Oh shit, we are down by 7 runs. So, it was a true highs and lows of the DMV sports area. It was great. I think that's what it's all about. But jokes aside, it was. I thought it was a fun season for the Orioles. I didn't really expect them to really. I think once if they made it past the Rangers, I don't know. I didn't really expect them to go that far. But it's nice to have a team that's kind of doing well.
We'll see. I mean, they are the cheapest fucking team in baseball, and
it is.
They had so much money to add pieces when they were already the best team in baseball to really solidify the postseason run. Because the team's really young. They don't really have the grit. They don't have that tenacity that you need in the postseason. It only comes from experience. So
grind it out. And
they're like, we could have gotten Justin Verlander, and they were like, what if we did nothing?
What if we just sat around? They were trying to play 8D chess, but no one else was really doing that.
They were like, hey, what if instead of spending money, we tried to hold the city of Baltimore hostage to get a mall built around the stadium?
Yeah, Camden Yards. They're like,
what if there was a Zara next to Camden Yards? Maybe that's where we should focus our attention.
That's what we need. We need maybe a little pizza place right across the street, because that's real success. I mean,
there's just not enough stale Auntie Anne mall kiosk food a block from Camden Yards,
There really isn't enough. I mean, you look over at what the Nats are doing, and they did just hire. I had to double check the name of the position, but the guy was basically in charge of all the drafting for the Orioles since 2014 or something. So that's pretty promising. I mean, the Nats were awful this season, but I think with baseball, when your team is bad and you don't expect anything, those are the best seasons, because you can just go to the ballpark, hang out in the summer. Hey, you know what? If we get a win, wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that just be the icing on the cake? But at least for me, just the experience of going out to a ball game, that's enough fun. Getting a win is great, but
for sure.
So
I do want to preface this by saying baseball is probably, out of the big 4 sports, the one I watch and follow the least.
It is pretty hard to follow because there's so much shit going on all the time. There's
balls, there's strikes, there's jock straps. It's who can really keep up?
Yeah, but there's guys in the outfield standing around.
People are asking are you a tits or ass man? Left hand tits, right hand ass.
Yeah.
But that's what I will say about baseball is it's the sport I've seen live the most over the past couple of years. And
because tickets are $15,
and there's nothing fucking almost choking on a hot dog while you're going for a pop fly.
Oof.
and then having to get the Heimlich maneuver from a very portly Italian gentleman next to you.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up going for a pop fly, because that brings me to the moral question I wanted to ask you. You know, you will see an adult get a fly ball, and then they hand it to some kid. And the discussion comes around every so often. If you're catching that fly ball, now I'm saying, like, you're not reaching over the kid to grab it. It came to you, and you grabbed it. Are you giving it to the kid or not?
Well, I first want to say, as someone who studied moral philosophy at the collegiate level, I think no one is more prepared to answer this than me.
I agree.
The second question is, what are the kids' vibes? Are they bad vibes? You know, is the kid like crying and puking everywhere?
Was the kid watching the game? Did the kid have the scorebook?
Was the kid who did the anti-trans TikTok rap? You know, like I think generally speaking, Also, how valuable is this home run ball? You know, like, is it like the 100th home run of someone or whatever, or is it just like
a lot of variables?
You say gunner. Is it like Maverick Johnson got called up from the fucking Hershey candy bars up to and just like happened to hit a dinger? I mean,
it's Shohei Ohtani's like 80th home run.
Fuck no,
month, you know,
fuck them kids. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like, and then, bro, Ohtani hit this.
You know, this generation's full of cupcakes. They all want a participation trophy. That's why these players are so soft. Because when they were kids, they were just given the balls.
I think that kid should go out there and earn the ball.
Here's what I think. I think if you catch a ball, you should get all of the kids in the section together and make them do kind of like a Hunger Games style, like, feats of strength and resilience to see who gets it.
I mean, I feel like they
teach them about the game through a different game, you know?
I think they could do that in between innings. You know, they're trying to... There's a big question of, how do we get the American public back into baseball? Blood, dude.
Child fights. Child blood sports.
Yeah, spill some blood. We're already putting kids back into factories. Like,
put them in the mines.
Put them in the mines. Put them out in the... They can probably build like some barracks underneath the ballpark, and the children could actually live there. What if we did kind of like a real life Fortnite type scenario where there's a bunch of like weapons? They place them around the kids would love that. Around the field, and then we kind of like toss them in from like the bowl, and whoever is the last one standing gets the ball. I like that. That's a good idea. I think MLB, hear us out. I don't know. I mean, we're smart guys. We're always thinking of something. It's better than what the commies are doing. Oh, shut the fuck up. I don't want to talk about it. Hey, but they won today, though. They won a game. At what cost? How, Tyler? How did they win? God, no. Look, I haven't cared about... I was a big American gridiron football fan as a child. Was never really into the commies. The team now known as the commies, formerly known as the racial slurs. But I developed a connection to the sport again when I was in college. I was really lonely. My roommates were all international students, and they were great, but like I missed home. I missed having certain connections. I went to a school full of like Timothy Chalamet wannabes. No one gave a shit. It was fun to talk shit about sports, and I returned. And in those like 8 years, it's been hell. It has been awful. The commies have been one of the worst teams in the sport. The owner was perhaps the most odious sports owner, who was not the chic of a Gulf oil slave state. And like even then, it's debatable. And even then, they won. They were good. Like, what do we have to show for all of our suffering? You know, he sells the team. The Wicked Witch died. He sold the team. We had the first quarterback who had any flash of anything more than like, you know, maybe the flash is like when you actually forget the tinfoil on the Taco Bell when you put it in the microwave. But sparks were there. You know. Wow, that's a great way to describe it. We were doing okay. I was carrying. They pulled me back, and then we played the Eagles, one of the best teams in the league. You know, went to the Super Bowl last year, and we lost, but we should have won if our coach wasn't a fucking coward. We had him. We had him where we wanted him, and that was progress. Never would have happened
a year ago. You know what we did the next week, Tyler?
What happened?
We got blown out by like 30 points to the consensus by far worst team in the league.
Oh, God.
And yeah, we won today, but we're still the fucking Bears. Like, the Bears are starting like dudes who like the sports podcast hosts I listen to have never heard of.
Damn.
Fucking
Let's start the guys from like the movie Invincible, where he just went to the Eagles tryouts. Like that's the whole team.
Literally, and fucking they churned us like butter. They fucking turned us into a delicious little like goat cheese tart over the span of like an hour and 3 hours. And
damn,
I couldn't watch today. I couldn't do that to myself again. Like,
well,
the only thing I'm spanking is my meat. This until they prove otherwise.
Well, Danny, you know, there's always hope. I mean, the Caps, they just played their first game this season, and you know, they ignore that they lost 4-0, you know, at home. Ignore that. I'm sure Ovechkin can score 75 goals in one season.
Isn't he like 55 years old? Like,
he could do it. He could do it. I believe in him. Yeah,
I feel like Ovechkin is old enough that he was like a partisan for the Soviet Union. You know, like he feels old enough that he remembers like the old national anthem, you know?
Ovechkin is so old that like I don't know if he's dyeing his hair or if like he just has a full head of gray hair now. Like
Jesus.
I don't know, but yep, one thing's for sure, baby, DMV area, it sure is the place to not be for sports.
It is certainly the place to move there and continue to throw your fandom in the face of the long-suffering populace. Welcome to We Demand a Podcast. I'm Danny.
I'm Tyler.
We're two old friends with two very different tastes in music. So once a month, we get together and kind of like do a bit of a 69ing of sorts where he shows me his, I show him mine, and then we just fucking throw them until we have an opinion on him. And then, you know, release that opinion into each other's facial regions.
And our like intellectual regions.
Yeah, like it's a lot of brain going on, you know.
Yeah, it's a lot of brain blasting. Jimmy Neutron would be a big fan.
Fucking, you can call me Hugh Neutron the way I'm fucking surrounded by brain blasts all the time.
You can call me Huge Neutron, baby, if you know what I mean.
Oh fucking.
Well,
it must be uncomfortable to buy pants. It can't be easy.
That's why I just don't buy them. What are they gonna do with these big brains?
Okay.
People are afraid to approach me on the street.
Okay, I want to say, who's gonna be the first conservative influencer to wear a dress and still be transphobic, and they're gonna say they wore the dress because their hog is so big they can't possibly contain it in their pants?
I don't know. Watch this space. I'm ready for like the first far right conservative to just actually realize they are trans and fully transition, but they're doing it to quote own the libs, but they're really just living like a great healthy life as an open trans person, but they're like, yeah, I'm sticking it to the libs. You know, okay. This will show them.
Well, who's the guy who's like transracial, who's now a right-wing influencer? Like, they moved to Korea to like get a bunch of surgeries to become Korean. And now we're like an anti-trans figure, and it's like, maybe you shouldn't have done that. These things are not the same. Like, I'm sorry you wanted to look like a BTS, like he wanted to look like a BTS member, so we got like extensive surgeries and like looks like a fucking, like, you know, like he looks like a original Xbox graphic trying to simulate a movie scene version of a K-pop band member. And he's like, we gotta stop the transition. It's like, maybe you should have thought about this a little more.
Yeah. Well, speaking of simulating Asians.
Jesus Christ. Oh, God. I do not endorse that remark, first of all. Let the record show.
Listen, I just did with I did with the past that was fed to me what I had to do with it. Okay. I had to think of a transition. That was the best I got.
Well,
we're a little,
we're talking about transitions a lot. Maybe you could.
Speaking of a trans icon.
Perfect.
So this is a big one for me, at least. So I guess we need to roll it back a bit. We're doing EPs this month for people who forgot. We're doing EPs, so stuff a little bit shorter. So the EP I gave Danny is by an artist named Wintermute, and that EP is called Blood Color Flower. So, Blood Color Flower was first released in 2015. It is shoegaze combined with Vocaloid vocals, primarily featuring Hatsune Miku, who I would say is the most well-known Vocaloid. I think she is like the typical iconic Vocaloid, and we'll talk about what exactly all that is, but just want to give a bit of context about who Wintermute is a little bit first. So, there isn't a whole lot of info about them. Based on what I read, I believe they are from Osaka, but currently live in Kansai. They have a blog, but nothing has been posted since 2017. They do have a Twitter that's still active. I looked at it today, and there was a tweet from like a few hours before I had looked. So I'm like, okay, so this person is like still around. But they previously made minimal techno music under the name Dkex, but they have been making Vocaloid-based music since around 2008, which is kind of right around when Vocaloid software came out. And Blood Color Flower seems to be their last substantial release. They did come out with a single in 2017, but I couldn't really find anything else that they have been making. Maybe a little hard to track down. It's possible they've kind of switched to like a different name, but I first discovered them through an album called Meek Gazer Volume 1, which is just a compilation of a bunch of shoegaze music from several Vocaloid producers. So pretty much all of these tracks are using Hatsune Miku vocals. Wintermute contributed with a track called Alchemy, and as a huge shoegaze fan, I love the sound of just the music of it, but I also like that combination of the typical signature sounds of shoegaze combined with the synthesized vocals that gave it this otherworldly vibe. So I'll throw it over you to Danny. What did you think? I know this was something completely new for you, so
yeah,
I applaud your bravery going in.
All gave some, but some gave all, and I was given all with this one. I have more of a question I want to ask you before I get into it.
Yeah.
You're saying this is shoegaze.
I mean, I would say it's maybe leans more towards dream pop, but
okay.
But I think the sound of it is very modern shoegaze. The reason I would say this is more dream pop is because it does feel a bit more poppy, but they have an album, and I think that album, there's more of like the shoegaze element, but yeah, to answer the question, if I had to put it under a category, I would definitely throw it under shoegaze.
Okay, so I had kind of three main reactions to this. The first is relevant based on your question, which was my main experience with shoegaze is the stuff you showed me. and this did not read as that, which is not an indictment on anything, or it's a value neutral statement. But I was kind of like, is this shoegaze? I don't know. Like, it feels more like alt rock, or like there are some riffs I'm like, this sounds like the Foo Fighters or like whatever. So that added even more confusion to what was already a bit of a, like you said, a bold new territory. The second thing, my second sort of big reaction was like, I thought instrumentally, musically, it was good, but maybe not great. I thought in particular, from a songwriting perspective, it wasn't necessarily like, it didn't blow me away. Like, they were solid songs, you know, all the riffs are solid, you know, instrumentation is good. I think some of them were a bit repetitive, but the big takeaway I have from this is the Vocaloid stuff. I would be lulled into a false sense of acceptance, or like, this is fine. And then something would happen in the melody, in the I want to say delivery, but like the deploying of the Vocaloid vocals that would just really take me out of it in like a uncanny valley type of way. And I think my biggest takeaway was this was good. It was certainly not bad. Like, it was good to fine, but I feel like there's a certain like rawness or rage or emotionality that songs like this with more of a minimal songwriting structure, like more stripped down, power chord driven stuff, the vocals and the sort of like heft or ability to belt adds a lot to this type of music. And I just was not, I do not think that the Vocaloid vocals could kind of like get to that point to really elevate this beyond the instrumentation, I think.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I mean, obviously there's only so much that a synthesized instrument can do compared to like, okay, putting real human emotion into your vocals. Backtracking to like your ideas and perceptions of shoegaze, all the shoegaze that I've kind of given you so far, like I've given you the two big heavy hitters, Slow Dive and My Bloody Valentine. Dive maybe like a little bit, but they're definitely more dream pop. So yeah, like this definitely has shoegaze elements, but I think you did kind of hit it on the head. I wouldn't, if I had to make a list of my favorite shoegaze albums, like this isn't anywhere on it or anything else by Wintermute. I think everything that they've done is good, and they got some good songs, or you know, if one of these songs comes on like just random shuffle, I'm like, all right, cool. But the main reason I wanted to give this to you is because I wanted to talk about Vocaloids and everything at some point, and I was like, this will be a good middle ground. I didn't want to throw you into the deep ends with like the super poppy stuff, because I like that this also sort of flips the perception of Miku and Vocaloid on its head, where it's being utilized in a genre that you probably wouldn't expect it to be utilized in. And I thought that was kind of cool too, because I have some talking points about that.
So I did want to say, I think that part of what a lot of my experience with this record, and I will say that a lot of things grew on me the more I listened to it, particularly the mixing and the instrumentation. That grew on me a lot, and I enjoy it a lot more. And I think through familiarity, the Vocaloid, the first time I listened to the Vocaloid vocals, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, yeah, it was kind of,
I think that's anyone's first reaction to hearing Vocaloid stuff.
it was a little off-putting, very weird, very foreign, and I didn't know how to feel about it, but I it was more overtly negative. What would happen, like this last listen through I did like right before we recorded, I'd be like, okay, this is fine. I see what they're going for. And then a particular note would be hit, a particular harmony would be hit that was just so uncanny valley. I would be kind of like jolted out of like the song for a second and kind of retreat a little bit back to that sort of like maybe preformed like first impression I had of this. And I also, the last thing I want to say before I let you go off, I really let you cook, is that my biggest thought was that I thought these Vocaloid vocals would work really well. This type of like, whatever you want to call it, vocals, Vocaloids. Would work really well in the context of like psychedelic music, particularly psychedelic electronic music. Like, I think this would work really, really well in the context of a more electronic soundscape, particularly something that can kind of like play with the sort of inhuman quality of it to make it surreal.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this particular... I think it's what you said, what makes this interesting and maybe more challenging than some of the popular stuff is the way it challenges the very like seemingly organic nature of like alternative rock music. Let's put it that, like, not to put it in the shoegaze box, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's apt as well, because a lot of the big Miku songs, they are a more electronic. There's more synths, keyboards, artificial drums, stuff like that. So it feels with it like it's within the same space. I don't know how they recorded this. I'm just gonna assume that they utilized real instruments. They didn't program the instruments.
I think the drums may have been programmed, but the
drums were probably programmed.
The guitars and bass are definitely real, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think musically, like you said, there's some good riffs and everything. Now, you had mentioned Uncanny Valley. If you can, because I know sometimes it's hard to like explain why something makes it feel like it's Uncanny Valley. Was it that the vocals sounded too fake, or the opposite? They were almost like too real.
I think it was more too fake. I would also say part of it was the mixing of it, because some of the songs, like I think Fall is one, the vocals feel really buried in the mix. And that made it almost blended in as like kind of like a weird, like, it felt more like another instrument than like something trying to replace a lead vocal line.
Yeah.
And I think I liked that more when they were really in front, and particularly when, like, I think it's on Vermilion Moon, there's like a big like higher pitched harmony they do. It sounds so like computer generated and like inhuman. It's like startling. And I don't think that is just because your vocals sound inhuman. Like, I mean, we've covered auto-tune drenched records on the show before.
We've also covered singers who can't really sing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, it's not a immediate negative thing.
Yeah.
I think in the context of this soundscape of this genre, it was really like, what the fuck just happened? Like, it was a real like jolt down my spine.
Yeah, I think that's understandable. I mean, some of my favorite songs that feature Miku vocals are the ones where like she is singing the lyrics so fast on a level that like not many people can do. Because it's like, oh yeah, I know this is a synthesizer, and it almost treads into like an instrument territory, or when they have her hit like a super high note. But again, a lot of those songs musically, they're already kind of fitting with that whole electronic sound. So when you are sort of combining it with what I'll say analog instruments, it can definitely be a little bit of like a clash. But I would say like, well, I just want to say like overall, I think you had a more positive reaction than I was initially expecting. I mean, I didn't expect you to like totally hate it. But I was expecting this to be like your most critical take on the music we've done so far.
I think it's interesting because I do think somehow my most critical take on any of the music was the Tame Impala record last episode.
Yeah, same with me.
And I definitely enjoyed that. I think I enjoyed that record more than this one. But I think because it's so foreign and new, and I'm trying to like, the reason this didn't work for me is it's not the traditional thing. It's not like in my normal wheelhouse of how to criticize things, or like things I'm used to criticizing. So I think I tried to be open-minded, but like I said, my first reaction to this record was like very, very, it was probably the worst first impression of any record you've given me. It did grow on me. And I think, you know, we had a bit more time than normal between episodes, and being able to take like
shorter release,
being able to take a gap of like 4 or 5 days between listens, I think also helped a lot. I also think that this one is maybe the most depending on if I listen to it in headphones versus speakers, was by far the biggest difference. Like, this worked way better in headphones.
Yeah.
I also was going to say one more thing. My favorite songs was, I think I liked Fall, but I said it reminded me of the Gin Blossoms, honestly, which you can take as a compliment or an insult. But that's one where I think the vocals are really drowned out. And then I also liked In the City of Ghost, because the verse riff was not a power chord. It was more like noodly. It was more like arpeggios. And I think that, like I said, when you hear power chords, I do want to hear someone put a lot of like throat and like oomph into their vocal delivery. But when is that more almost like you're getting close to post-punk, you can have a bit thinner vocal line. It works a lot better. And I think that's the thing I was trying to get to, is the Vocaloid vocals are thin in a way that is not my favorite take on this type of genre. I think is maybe the more substantial criticism to, like, this is weird, I don't know if I like it, or like it's a little off-putting. Because those are things you can overcome, right?
Yeah.
More, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that final track, I think that's actually a different Vocaloid on it. I don't think they used Miku, but I forget the name. It's Meg something. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Megan Trainor?
Yeah, dude. they walk among us, dude. They're walking among us. So I guess we should get into the part where I cook a little bit here, and because our thousands of listeners, our hundreds of thousands of listeners might be saying, but Tyler, what is Vocaloid?
Talk to him.
So first and foremost, I want to get this out of the way. It is not AI.
Boom.
And so sit down, put your, I got him with this one. Because a lot of people think that, and it's not AI. Vocaloid is a voice synthesizer software. It was first developed by Yamaha, and it came out in 2004. And basically what you do is you synthesize the singing by typing in the lyrics, the melody, you select the pitch and everything, and then it utilizes synthesizing technology with voices and things that were already recorded by singers, which we'll kind of circle back to that because I have a lot of thoughts on that. But it's not like generate me a 50s doo-wop song and the vocals are like just straight up stolen and not programmed in any way. So with that, you do have to have a talent for producing and understand, okay, I have to write out these lyrics, I have to do the melody, I have to come up with the right pitch and everything, which I've watched videos of Miku software because I find it interesting. I'm not like a big producer myself, but if I had that, I think there's like a free trial of the software that I would be curious and just messing around with. And it seems like something that like you first see it and you're like, whoa, okay, this is really overwhelming. So I think it's definitely impressive to craft a whole song that way.
Can I just interject for a second?
Go for it.
I have not done it myself, but I've heard it is very, very, very difficult to use Vocaloid software effectively. Like, it's not something you can just like drop in and do.
No, because you can look up YouTube videos where someone has Miku singing any kind of song that they obviously did themselves. It's like a cover of something, and it's like, oh yeah, like you kind of get it, but I can tell like you're still learning it. So it does seem difficult, but that's what YouTube's for. You watch tutorials. But anyways, then the next question people might have is, okay, well, who or what is Hatsune Miku? And I think this is kind of like a big part of the conversation, because like a theme of this episode is turning out to kind of be like the producer-artist relationship. At least that's kind of how I was looking at it. So Miku is a voice bank that was developed by a company that definitely doesn't sound evil at all, called Krypton Future Media.
Totally normal company.
Totally normal company. There
definitely no like children being experimented on in the basement the tower.
It's definitely
the tower is definitely not like dark and foreboding and covered in fog.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day out, except for the one tower where it always happens to be raining over there. I don't really understand.
Like, it definitely does not look like it's out of Blade Runner.
Yeah, there's definitely not like a creepy guy sitting at the front desk who like never says anything, but he's got like really long fingers and he's like, yeah, it's definitely not like that in there. But Hatsune Miku is a character that they also created. So within like the canon, she's 16, has long turquoise twin tails, and that's pretty much it. Miku can be whoever you want her to be, and I think that's a big part of the appeal for people. Like, I kind of compare it to Barbie dolls, and that like Barbie's whatever you want her to be. It's really your imagination that kind of defines her. So,
but she's also 16, which I think that's one of the more uncomfortable sticking points for me, given the whole imagination, also the routine sexualization of pop singers with
yeah. I mean, that's just adding to the pop music canon, I guess. No, but like I definitely agree, and I think there's issues here that are more music as culture issues in and of itself, right? Like, that's something we can be talking about, like idol groups in general, how they will basically like, I don't really want to say groom necessarily, because I feel like that's too harsh of a word, because I definitely think there are young people out there who are like, well, I want to be an idol, and then you get involved with these talent agencies and everything. That's like, okay, well, you can do this, but you just have to cut off your relations with all your friends and family and do what we tell you to do 24 hours a day. And like, that's a bigger issue as opposed to like the one thing, if that makes sense.
100%.
But when Krypton released her, they basically called her as an android diva in the near future where songs are lost. So it was kind of like, hey, you can create these songs with her. Anybody can purchase the software. Anyone can use the software. And since she came out in 2007, Miku's pretty much become this big phenomenon. She has a huge fandom. People sort of contribute to this idea of what Miku is. Like, there's a reoccurring joke that Miku created Harry Potter and Minecraft. Like, whenever there's someone who created something and then that person turns out to be a real piece of shit, they're like, oh wow, shout out Hatsune Miku for creating that. So like, obviously the big appeal of her is like the cute appearance, the free spirit attitude. Like, at the end of the day, she's an anime character, and people like anime characters because of the whole like cute aspect of it. And I also think fans get attached to their conceived idea of Miku based off of like the music that they listen to, because every producer might kind of have their own style of how they portray Miku, which again ties back into this like, hey, this is almost like subverting that expectation. So I'll stop there for now, because I still have more. There's a lot here, but yes. Like, let's is there anything we need to discuss with the class?
Something. So I want to say my main intellectual understanding of Vocaloid and Hatsune Miku, it comes from a writer, musician. I hope I don't butcher their name. It's spelled Jaime. Is that Jamie? Would you say, or Jaime?
I would say Jamie. Some people spell it that way.
Yeah, Jamie Brooks. They wrote a phenomenal article about sort of the intersection of what people call AI music versus Vocaloid music, and how it intersects with sort of the trajectory of the history of the recording artist. And the way they described Miku was the artist as a platform versus the artist as like an individual. And I think that was very helpful for me to understand how a lot of this works. And this record was a very good material thing to actually like understand that, right? Like, Hatsune Miku is a platform people can use to create music underneath this larger brand identity, right? Yeah. But like, there is no one company producer who is doing the Hatsune Miku catalog. It's decentralized, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, for the most part. So, I think that's a good transition into this next point, because this is where it gets to be a little muddy for me, mainly because copyright and everything is different in Japan than it is in the United States. So like there are some things
Sure.
that I maybe struggle to wrap my brain around a little, but it kind of functions like regular music does. Like Vocaloid producers are associated with a label. Most people making Vocaloid music, the label is Current, which is owned by Krypton. They basically created this label for people to put their music on. I would say, like, imagine a Bandcamp was the label. Like, that's the label. You're putting your music there, and all music is sold under that label's name is held under the producer's copyright. So the producer still has the rights to the music, which I think that's kind of cool in that, like, this company created Miku, but, like, they can't go after you because, oh, whoa, Hatsune Miku doesn't sing death metal. You can't have her do that. You can still do that. And that this platform also grants permission for the songs to be performed, and like sold on any quote unquote like official CDs. I think Krypton probably has stuff that they put out that's like, this is an official release. But then I wonder, like, the big thing happening next year is Miku Expo, which is like this essentially a tour, and I'm pretty sure that is being organized by Crunchyroll, but it has to be in partnership with this company. I don't know. I could just kind of keep digging, but then I'm getting into like a whole business management relations world that I'm like, what the fuck is happening? But yeah, she is essentially a platform that you can utilize where there are people who legitimately like Vocaloid music because of how it sounds, and some people might prefer Miku's voice over the other Vocaloids, so they'll go to her. But it's, I think, like 98% of the songs on there are probably Miku. Like, she's the most popular one,
right? So, and this is, I just want to return to the Jamie Brooks article. Maybe we link it. It's really, really, really good. I know I had you read it. The concern that she raises with this that resonates with me is because you bring up a valid point of, like, basically it is in a lot of ways Miku allows people to create a pop star without the sort of human cost that it takes to produce pop stars, going back as long as there have been pop stars. You know what I mean? Brooks thinks this is dangerous because it essentially takes out the very human element that made the recording artist as a figure so compelling and important. She specifically cites Louis Armstrong's approach to being like, I want to be the face of my recordings, because as a way to sort of cut through the pervasive blackface culture that he was surrounded by at the time. It was sort of like centering the identity of the artist and not allowing others to co-opt it or ridicule it or whatever. And the sort of like, as the recording artist becomes less relevant for financial reasons, for industry reasons, like this Vocaloid Miku type of platform becomes very appealing to keep the machine running on schedule, essentially. In that, you know, there's a danger in that, right? Like, Jamie specifically talks about these Vocaloid, like, fake Drake songs that people are talking, and like, indirectly, my interpretation is sort of indirectly compares it to a form of like blackface. That's obviously not the same with Miku. But there's something about this idea of like, while they're individual producers making this music at the end of the day, like, it's all in service of this kind of like larger corporate brand. And maybe that's no different than Ariana Grande at some level, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that is the same thing, but removing another human element from it, I don't know. It is certainly weird, and perhaps does not bode well for the future of like mainstream recording music. If people are still able to grow attached to it without that human element, like, what does that mean for artists? What does that mean for whatever? These are not questions I'm capable of answering, and I'm articulating the viewpoint of one writer who I do respect, but I'm not coming at this from like an academic hyper research perspective, but I do think that's like what makes this record, I think, interesting for me in that context is seeing how it can also just be like a producer being like, I want to play with this instrument, essentially. Let's go. And there's a lot of potential there. What it means for the larger industry is maybe where it becomes a bit more like I get a little more uneasy. But that's not the fault of Wintermute for making this record. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's why it's kind of like delicate and maybe a little confusing, if that's not to rant too much.
Yeah, I mean, going back, so in terms of the human element of it, I think something that I find important when talking about Miku and Vocaloid from a culture perspective is I think people assign a lot of their own meanings onto it, and that's how like basically they're putting the human element into it themselves. Like there are definitely people out there who I think if someone did art of like Miku getting beaten up, they would be like emotionally hurt a little. Because to them, like, yeah, obviously they know Miku isn't real, but it's the same idea of like, wow, when that character in that TV show died, when the bad thing happened to them, I felt bad. You have that human connection. I mean, as far as like, well, what does this mean for the industry at large? I guess I look at it like Miku's been around since 2007. It's not like she just came out last year, and I don't think this software is like this massive problem. I personally think like AI generating song lyrics and stuff is a bigger issue because at least with Miku songs, someone wrote it. And there's like some pretty dark Miku songs out there. Like someone made one about coin locker babies, which is like
Jesus.
It's pretty dark, but like the artists are putting their own feeling into the lyrics, and whether or not the vocals are executing that probably is subjective and probably comes down to the producer's skill. But I think that's the point that I don't want to say I have a problem with it. I think I'm just more interested in it because like you could probably say it's the same thing about the auto-tune explosion and stuff like that. I do think, kind of like you said, is it servicing this grand brand? Oh yeah, like sure, but I think that's less of the producer's issue and more of just like it's a capitalist system. Like everything is serving a brand. Like most of these pop artists out here today doing the same thing. Like I don't really follow where a lot of the major pop stars, like what label they're on, in the same way that I do with like the music I listen to, but maybe you know more about that. I feel like they're all on like the same fucking label, Sony Music or something.
They're all on one of three, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I think that like the autotune example was a good thing because people would say, well, it allowed people who weren't. It basically allows people to cover up for a lack of singing talent to produce a more like friendly brand or image behind an artist. Yeah. Like, but the flip side of that is it allowed people to necessarily have the singing chops or maybe great songwriting or lyrical chops to still, get to where it needs to go, right? Like being able to hit the melodies they hear in their head but can't execute, I think to your point about Miku not being new, I think it's not Miku being real and the tool being real. I think the culture has shifted very recently in like very rapid succession of how we feel about computer generated stuff with the AI stuff. And it's more of like, this is something a professor told me in college, but like the scientist just creates to create. They don't really think about the implications. It's up for the institutions and the culture to like decide how that technology is used. And I think, but by virtue of the technology existing, it allows maybe bad actors, people who don't have artistry at heart, to it provides them a more or hyper capitalists who want to exploit who want to keep as many people out of receiving royalties or profiting from the art. It just gives them a more effective tool to do that and help steer and influence the culture. Mm-hmm. And now the culture is at a point where it's very like enough people either don't give a shit or like curious in a way without critical lenses that I don't know. But this is all to say, I don't think this is the fault of the producers. I don't think that the tool in and of itself is bad. I think it's interesting. And like I said, I do want to hear this in other contexts. I really would like to hear this in like I've brought this band up before, but like a XXYYXX, like super cloudy, psychedelic electronic context. I think it'd be really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely send you some of my favorite, what I'll call traditional Miku songs, and like, hey, this is what it's typically like. Cause I will say it works better. It functions better. There's something I wanted to say. There was a point I wanted to make. It might come back to me with everything that we were talking about, but I kind of wanted to go back to like, well, how does this synthesizer thing work? Because this is another talking point I find interesting. So, Hatsune Miku's voice is modeled after Saki Fujita, a Japanese voice actress, and I couldn't really find a whole ton on how the business side of this works. I don't really think she's receiving royalties when songs are created. I think it's more likely, hey, here's one big fat payment that we're going to pay you, and we're going to like we'll get you in a recording booth, you'll do certain things, and that's what this tool is going to use to synthesize. And kind of related, I think this is more of an issue with voice acting in general, as opposed to like, oh, well, it's awful that this is what Vocaloid utilizes, because like VAs in general, both in the US and Japan, are vastly underpaid. This is why like you hear Steve Blum in like 800 things. You're like, wait, weren't you just in that? And now you're in this? How are you doing this? And like, that's a separate, lengthier conversation. But I think that also ties back into the whole thing with AI. Like, at the end of the day, Vegeta got paid to have her voice sampled, but as funny as the YouTube videos are, because like I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I've never got enjoyment or laughed at, you know, SpongeBob sings Soulja Boy or something, and they're using AI generated vocals. Like, it's a very gray thing where you're like, well, that was funny, but also like they just stole that voice actor's voice, and like it's becoming an issue now where people are making video games where they are using AI to replicate their favorite voice actor's voice, and then that voice actor's like, I had no idea that was a thing. Like, you just can't steal my voice. I mean, again, that was a huge talking point for the ongoing actors strike, and I do think it's necessary to kind of reanalyze and relook at, like, you know, the space that Vocaloid software kind of takes up, how it's being utilized. But again, I think it comes down to the utilization. It's not so much the tool, it's how it's used. Kind of like you were saying. I do remember. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, you go ahead. If you remember the point, go.
Yeah, it was, I was having a conversation with, my friend who's a big Miku fan, and we had a sort of a light discussion on like, would Vocaloid stuff ever kind of blow up in the US? Cause, I think like pre-2020, at least in 2019, Lady Gaga had Hatsune Miku as her opener. And in 2020, Miku was going to play at Coachella, but obviously with COVID, that didn't happen. And I think it's popular as hell, obviously. Like, she sold out the anthem for next year, you know? But I'm also curious, like, will we ever see Miku collab with, like, a big pop star? I mean, Lady Gaga's huge, but, like, I feel like she was
weird
past
her
enough.
point of like driving the culture, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like her influence as the weird pop star was over by that point.
Mm-hmm. I think it'd be different if I mean, there's an argument of like, if this example is even fitting anymore, but like Billie Eilish and Miku, like could and the reason I guess I want to say like the reason I don't think it would really take off is I just think for like a Western audience, for a lot of people, maybe just like the anime character jumping around on stage might just be like a bridge too far for them. But if there's like, I don't know, Dua Lipa has a new song come out and there's like a verse that is utilizing Hatsune Miku vocals, totally different. People won't even notice. I
want to say two things. We're running long, so I do want to try and keep my thoughts brief. I'm glad you brought up the actor strike, because that was where my brain went. My point on that is just going to be, talk about copyright all you want and whether that's the most effective way of getting people to be compensated for their art. That's a different discussion, but it's the one we have now. And I do think like I said earlier, like the bigger fear, and this dovetails very well on what I was going to say next, is like what you're describing with like the voice actors not consenting to their stuff being used and being profited from. And I think there's going to have to be a whole new development of copyright law and like IP law to accommodate for that. But I do think regardless, people are going to be underpaid. I think no matter what, I think that's just how it goes without the strong labor and, VAs. I think they're part of Actors Guild.
Yeah. And I think there's a separate voice actors guild thing.
But I just don't think they have the leverage to really get what they probably deserve. And they also really fuck, I had another point I was going to say. And also like I
was talking about like the crossover between Miku and US pop stars.
No. I had more. I had a train of thought and I lost it. But let's just say that people probably aren't going to be paid fairly. It's just one more way of the human experience and the human ability to create being commodified into a tool by people who maybe don't respect or understand it and only see it as like a profit vessel. It's just and like that is very concerning. And this dovetails, I think there's a generation gap when it comes to like idol culture. Like, East Asia's had a culture of people like loving sort of like non-real, like animated, whatever, like mascots and celebrities for much longer than the West has. And something I believe is like Japanese online culture, I think of with like, 2chan to 4chan is maybe like 10 to 15 years ahead of us in a lot of ways, at least in the States. And I do think the generation of kids who grew up on Skibbity toilet videos and like, like people who grew up on like Avatar streams as people, I think they're more primed to have a more Miku style Vocaloid idol. I do think the first way it's going to get big though is a big rock star's estate is going to make a very lucrative deal to license their performance as Vocaloid. And we're going to get like a fucking like
Elvis synthesizer.
Yeah, like we're in an Elvis record that's going to be licensed by the Elvis estate, going to be licensed by the label. And I think that it's going to be like remember all the fucking hologram? Remember the Tupac hologram?
Yep.
That's going to be the first thing before we get to like an American Hatsune Miku type character.
Yeah.
I
mean,
and that to me is more and that's more disturbing. I think that's more disturbing.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I personally think they would just jump over the synthesizer bit and go right into AI because it's.
Well, the thing is, the AI is like, because even those like I made an AI Drake song or whatever, those are still the best ones are still Vocaloid.
Yeah.
Like at least how it stands now, and I do think like the AI just isn't there yet. 10 years, 5 years, who knows? But as it stands now, I think it's more likely you'd get the official Elvis Vocaloid, and you're gonna have like fucking Timbaland make an Elvis song. You know what I mean? Like I think that's more likely in the near future with like it's gonna be the AI Michael Jackson tour and Drake will finally get to perform next to Michael Jackson. I think that's like the more likely thing we're gonna get.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, I do want to do a little bit more research on like how does a live Miku performance work unless they just like have practice to have everything synced up properly.
I would assume it's like that.
That's probably likely. I don't think there's someone back there like. But then I wonder,
There's someone in what's the tune for the suits with all the spots on? They used to do like green screen stuff.
A mocap.
Yeah, there's someone in a mocap beneath the stage.
Dude, I want that to be me, dude. You are Miku.
It's like a really burly 6'8" bodybuilder type hitting all the steps, but it's being presented as like a 16-year-old girl up there.
Listen, as someone who has been to anime conventions, I've watched people at like the DDR machines. You'd be fucking surprised. Like some of these people, you're like, oh my god, you got like the body of a track star. It's because they're doing DDR all day, every day. It's just, well, no wonder. Well, I don't. I feel like there's so much we could keep going on.
Yeah, for sure.
But there are some thoughts I have that I kind of want to save for the next segment. Any closing thoughts from you?
I would say to anyone who's really skeptical of this, particularly the Hatsune Miku Vocaloid, I would say give it a shot. Like, I was surprised at how amenable I found it, and maybe that's an indictment on my own hater nature. But I would say you're only going to hear more of it, so maybe dive headfirst in now. Yeah,
my friend said that if you said anything bad about Miku, she would cry. So,
well, Miku does not, she's no Aretha Franklin. That's all I'll say.
I mean, yet. Who knows?
Fuck off. God damn.
Well, shout out Hatsune Miku, blue hair, blue tie, and she's tied in your Wi-Fi. So, there you go.
Well, Tyler, I've actually just gotten word that, your questions about how the Miku shows work might be answered because you're seeing them.
Yeah, I got tickets for Hatsune Miku Expo 2024, baby, at the Anthem in DC. So all of our adoring fans out there, I will be doing a Q&A. I'll be doing a live signing there.
He will be giving out kisses.
Yeah, stall number 2 in the bathroom on the second floor. Roll up. There's going to be a secret knock, but I haven't come up with it yet. So just keep tuning in and I'll tell you what that knock is. But yeah, me and like 4 other friends, we're going. We're talking about like, what do we wear?
Well, my question is, who else is going to be there? Like, what is the vibe gonna be at the Hatsune Miku
Dude,
show?
that is a great question and something I've been wondering a lot because I think it's gonna be an interesting mix. I think you're gonna have people like me and my friends who kind of grew up, as weird as that sounds, but like I remember when Miku first came out and we kind of saw like the creation and to what it is now, to the anime weebs who only go outside like 4 times a year.
Hell yeah.
And they're packing into the Anthem. They haven't been in there. They haven't been to a live show like ever. I'm pretty sure it's assigned seating because you had to pick like your section. So I kind of like that because there's no pressure to roll up really quickly. But the last time I was at the Anthem, I saw a band who I feel like the fan base, there's a little bit of an overlap. I saw a little group called Death Grips.
Oh,
and
God.
Boy, oh boy, do we have a story for you.
There's been
yeah.
I don't know the best way. I don't know the best way to lay this on, but
people are pissing at Death Grip shows.
People are doing insane shit at the Death Grip shows this tour.
Yep.
People are pissing in the pit. People are throwing so much shit at the artists that they are literally leaving in the middle of the set.
Yep.
People are wearing propeller hats like a fucking kid in a 1930s cartoon with an oversized lolly.
Yep.
The terminally online fan base allegations are playing out in real time, and the implications are worse than we could have ever imagined.
It's okay. So I don't know if I talked about my Death Grips concert experience on the podcast. If I have, forgive me, but we're gonna briefly talk about it again. So I saw them, and there were a couple people who had like the propeller hats and stuff, which originated from a meme on Reddit when people were like, what should I wear to the Death Grip show? And someone shared that. And, I thought it was funny. That's harmless. Hey, wear whatever you want to a concert. It's a little silly. But, and then people also had, remember the parachute pit from elementary school? People whipped one of those out for only 2 minutes. Because then it got ripped up. Which, from where I was, that was also kind of funny. I think whatever you're doing at a show, so long as you're not, one, disrespecting the artist on stage, and two, being a nuisance and causing an issue to those around you, whatever. I would much rather be next to the people with the parachute pit than the crowd who are just talking through the whole show.
Oh my god!
They want to hear. They just want to hear the one song. And to compare it to when I saw Chat Pile, great fucking audience.
Yes.
People were moshing. They were having a great time. Not to say the meme, but unironically, not a cell phone in sight. People, there was that artist and crowd relationship, and I legitimately like Death Grips. I think they are a great group. Any artist on stage demands your respect. I don't like when people bring up the argument, well, they paid for their ticket so they can do whatever they want. I get that.
No!
But why the fuck would you choose to spend your money to fucking piss on the ground? That's not how we act. That's not how we act.
I think you should let people enjoy things.
That's how people are. They're like, well, they're not bothering anybody. Are you kidding me? They peed on the ground.
Isn't there a famous story about a furry con where people were getting off by shitting in diapers and walking around the con as a fetish thing? It's
potentially the thing with furries. There's always these stories that start. It's like a game of telephone, but I can definitely believe that.
So the thing is, pissing in the Death Grips pit is not that far off from that. It's essentially the same thing. I went to a show last year, and it was a small, intimate venue. The band was playing slower stuff for the most part, in between R&B singer-songwriter. It was their first ever U.S. tour, and this group of people next to us did not stop talking the entire fucking time. Why are you here? This is not a super popular band. This is their first U.S. tour. We're in a small theater. The guy is close enough he can talk to he can have a conversation with the audience without using the microphone. Who cares? I don't know what you're talking about. Also, I don't really talk to anyone for more than 15 minutes straight outside of this podcast. You can talk for 2 hours straight. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
It can't be that important. And I don't want to say something because at the end of the day, I live in America. and I know how people have a tendency to just pop off over here. And I don't want to get shot at the Jack Johnson concert. Come on. It blows my mind. There's so many reasons. I think COVID really fucked people up, and there was a bunch of people who, if COVID didn't happen,
let's be honest, it's the kids. It's the kids who miss.
It's the kids.
There's an age cohort from, I would say, about let's say about 19 through about 15 now, and they just miss some of the most crucial developmental years about how to socialize yourself in public. And then COVID ends and they're still too addicted to the computer. All they do is watch skibbity toilet videos and fucking Andrew Tate live streams. And now they go in public and they're like, I do legitimately think that I'm not a phone bad person, but I do think people living their lives primarily as the sort of online culture has morphed to a point to where you kind of navigate all of the big platforms based on your own directive and with little checking from other people until you get raided by like a BTS army or whatever.
Yeah, that's why I'd never say anything bad about Taylor Swift on Twitter because I'm legitimately afraid.
But what I'm saying is that I think these people are increasingly more antisocial because they live most of their life in a space that's entirely self-directed.
Yeah.
And that insulates themselves from others and the consequence of their actions towards others. And so they think it's normal to be like, I'm going to, like, I paid for this, I can do whatever I want. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just the continual supremacy of consumer culture for the continual worse off.
Yeah.
I also want to say...
Oh, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
You know, I've been to a few concerts recently. Like, I don't go, I think, to nearly as many as you, but as a whole, maybe I'm going to concerts with an older crowd. Mm-hmm. The only concert I went to with a younger crowd was the same night Death Grips played in New York. Danny Brown and JPEG Mafia had played in New York.
Ooh.
And those kids, honestly, the range from like frat bros to like kids who had never been to a concert before was incredible. It was like a true all stripes welcome. However, people were throwing water bottles, but like any show of that energy, like I remember going to an Odd Future show like almost 15 years ago at this point. The behavior in that sort of music just like brings out a certain level of people acting crazy.
Yeah.
But the kids were surprisingly good. I will say, like, maybe
they were all at Death Grips.
I would say all the pissers were at Death Grips.
Yeah, they probably were.
Where the kids are really bothering me, where the crowds have been so bad, are the fucking movies. Like,
listen, if I catch anyone saying a fucking word during Killers of the Flower Moon, I'm throwing hands.
I have one for you. I'm
not telling you to shush. I'm walking up and I'm giving you a Scorsese beatdown, baby.
The worst phone user I ever had was in a Charlie Day from Always Sunny had a movie. Horrible movie. Awful. I don't blame them. But they were on their phone in such a way and were constantly doing a thing when they were like flicking it.
Oh my god.
While they were doing it throughout the entire movie. Like, I think they were tapping on the side while scrolling, and they were directly behind me. And I've never once told anyone to shut the fuck up in a movie theater. I was driven to the point of pure insanity, and also but luckily the movie was so bad, I was like, I can't tell someone to shut the fuck up during this piece of shit.
Yeah, what are they gonna say? What, you like this?
Yeah, exactly. Awful.
I don't,
but the worst was I got to see my all-time favorite movie. It's at like an independent theater in the city. They play great films, but it's not a place you just go if you don't know about it. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not going to the 9 p.m. showing of All That Jazz on a Tuesday night unless you give a shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The woman next to me did not get off her phone for, I would say, a solid 45 minutes of the movie. Why are you there? Why did you pay 17 minutes?
You know?
It's my favorite movie. It's not on streaming. It's only on fucking Tubi. You can't watch it without ads unless you like buy the physical DVD or go see it. And you're here fucking... I watched her online shop, Tyler.
Oh my god.
Why are you here? Why are you here?
Yeah.
Oh god.
Not that this excuses it, but like, dude, go do that in like the Paw Patrol movie. Because like...
When I saw...
I bet you parents are in there, and I don't blame them. You know, you're like 5-year-old wanting to see the Paw Patrol movie. All right, be on your phone. Fuck it. Like, but like,
oh wait, did I ever tell you about the woman in the Super Mario Brothers movie I saw?
I don't think so.
Oh my god, this is the greatest creature, and I think the last anecdote before we transition. But I made my friend see it with me as a bit, and he was like, "It's going to be terrible." I'm like, "Well, you're still seeing it with me." I'm convinced the woman in front of us had never been to a movie before, and she was like at least in her mid-20s, if not like early 30s.
Whoa, what? The screen is so big.
She was fully screen recording like every opening scene and texting them to someone with commentary, and they were not replying back. But she was saying, "Oh my
god!"
She was like, "There's a point in the movie where she was like applauding and whooping, and like singing along to the songs. Like she was singing along to Take On Me very loudly." And then at the end of the Super Mario Brothers movie, like, and there's a point, like, you know, during the scene where they're doing the Mario Kart, she was like throwing her hands up like a fucking roller coaster. When the movie ends, she tries to start an applause. Also, I don't like people applauding at the end of movies anyway.
I hate it.
And then she goes, "All right then. Like, I guess I'll do it myself," or something, when no one else joined in. Like, and I was and then I get up. She was very attractive. And that was the, like, oh my God, like, has no one, is she just so pretty no one's ever checked her on this stuff before? Because, like,
not, dude.
Whew.
I can't imagine, like, trying to get the applause going for the Mario movie.
The Mario movie. Oh my God.
That would have been me, like, when Bowser was on screen. I would have been like, oh, come on, let's get it going.
Like, it was insane.
Well, speaking of movies that are hard to find.
Oh God. Yeah. Speaking of movies that are hard to find, the EP I gave Tyler is also from 2015. It is the Motorcycle Jesus official soundtrack EP by singer-songwriter, producer, interdisciplinary artist, Boots. Now, Boots is an interesting character, and perhaps the first person we're going to talk about the show who's almost definitely an industry plant, for whatever, however you define that. Boots was in a bunch of kind of like go nowhere indie rock bands in the late 2000s, early 2010s. He was in a few of them. The stuff they made ranged from kind of like more dubstep influence, like that, like almost proto Imagine Dragons stuff, to stuff that was noisier, to stuff that was like straight out of like a car commercial, Apple commercial. Mm-hmm. And then in 2013, out of nowhere, this unknown person is signed to the Jay-Z Rock Nation label and ends up producing 80% of the self-titled Beyonce record, including writing 4 songs. And that record is basically what turned Beyonce from someone with a dedicated fan base, but the last album didn't sell as well. The singles weren't as prevalent. Maybe she's on the legacy artist track to creating the Beyonce we know today. Like, that was the full, like, deification, and Boots was the creative mind behind it. He's continued to produce and release some solo material, but largely a background figure. A lot of his most streamed songs are him lending guest vocals to other producers and Run the Jewels songs. But he put out this EP in 2015 and accompanied a 35-minute movie that he made called Motorcycle Jesus. You cannot find this movie online. The YouTube video has been archived. No one bothered to save it. I found the press releases that linked it through the archive. Can't find it. So I believe the video for the opening song is from the movie. I could be wrong. I don't know. I didn't watch it when it came out. But that's a lot of background to say, Tyler, what did you think of Motorcycle Jesus?
Yeah, it was a grower for me. I looked at it first, but I think it really started to come around after my last few listens. There were 2 standout tracks for me, Only and Teen Reader. I got a lot of different vibes from it. Mainly like alternative rock. I was kind of surprised. I think I went into this expecting, and I don't know why I was expecting this, but something a bit more electronic, dancey, maybe something that feels more like James Blake or something. I guess because I just saw like white producer facing me on the cover of this release, and like
sure.
that's immediately what my brain went to. But I heard a lot of Radiohead, Muse, Queens of the Stone Age, and even a little bit of Arctic Monkeys. And I thought that was really interesting. Like it was blending all of those different sounds really well, and it knows how to utilize texture, and obviously the production was great. And even with all those influences, it still had its own voice. I think overall, I was just as I was trying to find out more about this EP and this artist and everything, I felt like I was trying to research a government conspiracy, and I just hit another dead end. So I guess my big question was like, what made you pick this EP? Like, what was it about Motorcycle Jesus, besides that being a great name, of course?
Yes, obviously.
You're like, yeah, I want this to be the one.
I do want to say the influences, I agree. His other solo stuff does not sound like this at all. It's a lot more trappy, electronic. He's produced for a lot of different bands since the Beyonce record. Like everything from more Beyonce to FKA Twigs to Phenagram to kind of like new disco groups. Like he really just seems to be able to do anything from the production standpoint, although I don't know if it's always super successful. I also picked up on some industrial elements in this to some extent. And also, obviously, the R&B influence comes through very strong, I think, in some of the melodies and his vocal style on some of the slower songs. I picked this because I remember finding this. So I have proof. The EP came out in 2015. I believe the opening track, Mercy, was released in 2014, if not earlier. And Boots is kind of a frequent collaborator with Run the Jewels. And obviously 2013, 2014 was maybe peak Run the Jewels in a lot of ways. And I believe one of the members, I believe LP, shared the link to Mercy Me. And it blew my fucking mind. I think it was just something that was so incredible. And I remember me and some of my friends bonded over how much we liked that song. And then the subsequent EP. So that's one factor. Like it was kind of given to me. It fell on my lap. And I loved it. I think it's one of my favorite EPs. I also think that I haven't given you anything that's just cinematic in approach to songwriting. Yeah. I do think like you can tell it's a movie score. Like you can tell like, you know, it's very dynamic. Like the quiet loud shit is and particularly like, I mean, Mercy Me, the opening track, and Teen Reader to a lesser extent. If you don't know that it's going to get really loud halfway through, you're going to blow out your like headphones or your speakers when it comes in. Like, and I think adding that element to it, to stuff I've given you is also like, I don't, you know, like, I think there is kind of that Lana Del Rey influence on this. The Lana Del Rey has kind of become its own subgenre with like even minting superstars like Billie Eilish, as well as like, you know, massively important figures like Ethel Cain are all sort of downstream from that Lana Del Rey sound. And that sort of stuff, that slow, atmospheric, kind of R&B kind of singer-songwriter approach, almost whisper singing or quiet, can be kind of droll to me at times. Like a lot of times it doesn't have enough like rhythm, or like it doesn't get fast enough. And I think this took that approach at times to some songs, and just, I think because he comes from the background of like, he just made maybe the biggest record of Beyonce, and most important record of Beyonce's career. He knows how to give it a bit more stank. And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, it does have that cinematic feel. I couldn't watch the short film because obviously I couldn't find it anywhere, but I had a lot of fun just letting my brain kind of create its own music video to this. So I felt like the vibe I always kind of went back to was like maybe something more out of like Drive, like this late night vibe, kind of seedy. And it fit really well. I liked how it would go from a very cinematic feel to like, oh, okay, now like this feels like a song. Yeah. And then kind of transitions back into a cinematic feel. It's a real shame you can't find this movie anywhere,
I know.
because
I'd be really curious.
Yeah, I'm curious how does all of this come together and work, because the music's cool. But reading about this movie, it's like a post-apocalyptic thing out in like the desert, which I guess the songs that kind of remind me of Queens of the Stone Age, sorta. I guess I kind of can imagine the desert, that sort of like desert rock sound. But a lot of the other tunes, I don't know. It felt very like city,
for sure,
to me, and like I don't know. Maybe it's because like I've been back into playing Cyberpunk, and like I guess I'm in this dark and gritty city, and I'm thinking about that while listening to this music. But it was cool, and kind of like our last conversation, very producer focused here. Like you can't find a lot of information about this guy, and a lot of the stuff
no one knows where he came from. Like
everything just links him back to Beyonce. And something that I noted down is like producers with Hatsune Miku, how does one craft their own identity as a producer? Can they even be free from being related back to the artists they produce? And then also, like, do they need to? Like, does Boots even like want to be Boots? Like, nah, I'm fine being the guy who like, that's fine. He's still making his money at the end of the day. He
put out a record, I think, either this year or last year. Like, he's still doing solo stuff. It has not caught on in the same way. Like I said, I think outside of this EP, it's not something I would really. I don't think it's bad, but I'm not sure I'm actually going to recommend it. To your point, also, can you escape who you produce for when you produce for Beyonce?
No,
you know what I mean. And like that,
I really don't think you can.
And that being your introduction to the world, and like, in a way, as a producer, is there no higher compliment than being like, I'm the artist that you could debatably say made Beyonce into the like inhuman institution we know her as today.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's gotta feel good regardless.
Oh yeah.
But I do think like with this, I was gonna say this till later, but what I read he's up to now is he has an animation studio and has been making animated short films for a while, and the most recent one that studio released like won some awards.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and like, he made a movie with this. I do think that maybe he understands that maybe he's decided that, maybe music as him, he can be a solo guy. Like, the kind of one for me, one for them, but like, I can make this bread off of producing for these, big artists, and then, make my own music, but also maybe has ambitions to establish himself as a more independent figure through like film and animation or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I also like the idea of a producer making money just to like fund their own hobbies.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way.
I think it's awesome. And, I wonder if he looked at someone like Trent Reznor, who, okay.
I was going to say the 9 Inch, like, I'm not a huge 9 Inch Nails person, but you can definitely feel that, like, that influence. And like, I don't know, like, you can't think of Rockstar turning movie score writer without thinking of Trent Reznor.
Yeah, especially because he did it so well. Where like I feel like a lot of musicians try and do it, but it just kind of feels like, oh, you just wrote your own solo songs for the movie rather than writing to the movie. Like I just recently watched The Social Network for the first time in a while, and the score in that movie is just so fucking good. And at times it's like, okay, yeah, I can tell this is Trent Reznor, but then there's also times where like you just get so lost into what he's made there. So I hope he continues to do some movie scores, maybe something a bit bigger in terms of budget and everything, because I like what I heard, and I think there's it makes me want more that isn't what you were describing earlier, like some more trap influence stuff. Like I liked what he was doing here. I think the bit I didn't like the most was just like how it ends, the really abrupt ending.
Yeah.
I think because maybe I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, give me more tunes. And then it's just like, oh wait, it's like when I first listened to this, I was listening to it at work, just like as I was doing stuff, and like I thought my Spotify cut out.
Yeah, right.
Something.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what? Oh, that's how it ends.
See, I was gonna say I like it, and we were talking about this. I was talking with Tame Impala last time. How I'm like, it sometimes felt like he was like, okay, I need a part in this song to make it flow. Sure, this is what people do. I think you can tell Boots is there's a reason he gets contracted by the biggest artists in the world to write their songs. Like, I thought from a songwriting perspective and the way he was able to like for example, the which one is it? I think it's the bridge on which one? Fuck, I have my notes in front of me. There's one bridge, I think it's Suicide Games, where it's just like, it is such an insane like way it just like scales back for a second and like deconstructs itself and comes back in a way that doesn't feel forced. And even also the intro on Suicide Games, where it is this like industrial kind of thumping thing, and then it goes into like a very kind of like crooner vibe very effortlessly. Like, I think that's what really draws me to this record over and over again throughout the years, because there's a lot of music that came out when I was first half of college that blew my mind, and it doesn't always, a lot of it just doesn't anymore. And I think this Mercy, the opening track's are my favorite. Mercy Me, if I haven't heard that in a while and I play it, when it like explodes halfway through, it still gets me every time. Yeah. But listening to this really closely for the podcast, I think the songwriting touches are just like very deft, very well thought out. And that's why I like that ending where it just like hard stops, because it was just another way of him being like, oh, like you thought I ran out of tricks, like kind of fuck you almost. I don't know. It worked for me, but I can understand it's very jarring if you don't know what's coming.
Yeah, I at first it was like but then it was aight.
Now I have a question for you about this record, because it's been going back and forth. The lyrics on this thing, I don't know how closely you paid attention. I think from like the Max Martin school of songwriting, like, oh, like the phonetically they flow together really well and they hit the rhythms really well. Mm-hmm. But are they good? Like, are the lyrics on this thing actually good?
I gotta be honest with you. I didn't focus on the lyrics all that much on this one. And maybe like that speaks for itself.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like, here's the thing. I feel like when you're doing cinematic music, and this is where I wish I could watch this thing, because I wish I knew where these songs were placed. Because sometimes I feel it again, it all comes down to how it's executed, but sometimes I feel like when you have music for the movie where there are lyrics, when it's like transitioning between scenes, sometimes that doesn't work for me at all. It feels way too cheesy. Mm-hmm. I think the lyrics just kind of took a little bit of a backseat for me.
100%.
Yeah, there wasn't really anything that was like, ooh. Yeah, I can't say for sure that they were bad. I'd have to like kind of go back.
Do you mind if I read you some?
Yeah, maybe this will answer my question.
From Suicide Games. The first two verses basically only have 2 lines apiece, so I'm just going to read all 4 of them. You are a watery grave. You are the ship and the slave. I am the hole in the maze. I am the glory and blaze. Changing the vial out for veins. Oh, we can vibe out for days and days. I think they might be really bad. I think like, and it never took me out of it, because like I said, like they hit the melody and phonetically, like they sound good, right? But when I was in there, I was just like, oh my god, dude! Like, you are the ship and the slave. Like, oh, dude, come on, man. I don't know about that. I don't know.
Sometimes this is why I think producers need a producer. Hey, man.
He's a songwriter. He like wrote like he writes for Beyonce. Like he is doing that, but like
it's funny though, because I also have this feeling that if Beyonce dropped that line, because she's Beyonce, people are like, wow.
Yeah,
incredible.
for sure.
And it's just like, it's just the funny thing with music. Like, if she said we could vibe out for days and days,
yeah,
you'd be like,
oh,
songwriter of our generation. Yeah,
so many Instagram captions are coming out with that.
Yeah, but when Boots does it, it's like, shut up.
This goes back to the Hatsumi Miku like brand thing, you know, like the Beyonce brand can maybe carry his lyrics a lot better than the Boots unknown brand can, you know. Like,
yeah, I mean, I guess like a black woman singing "You Are the Ship and the Slave" has a little bit more power behind it than like Boots,
this dude,
white man. Which, I get it, but maybe that's why he's like, I guess I'll focus on writing and producing. I can find people who can do this better than I can. We can vibe out for days and days. Whew.
I do think the lyrics to Mercy are good. I will stand behind that. The rest of them, I don't know. I really
sure, he's out.
I also want to say, based on what you were saying, I think once you listen to the lyrics, the scenes that they're trying to present are so obvious. It's like impossible for me not to see how these things soundtrack what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, Mercy is clearly them emerging from the wasteland into something. The second song, I Run Roulette, they're like escaping something, or like they're in like a fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
Suicide Games is like someone's almost dying, or like they're about to kill themselves. Oh, only they've escaped and they're lost, but it's like, oh, like it's just us against the world, baby. And then Teen Reader, I don't know. It just feels like they're like, maybe they're like
reading to a teenager.
They're reading One Piece.
All right, we're gonna start with Volume 1 and keep going, okay?
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just like
not good. Well, maybe it's also a good thing that we haven't seen the movie, because every time I look something up about this guy, I always read about how you can watch Motorcycle Jesus, but never anything about, hey, I just watched Motorcycle Jesus.
Oh, let's go to Letterboxd.
So, like, was this any good, or is there a reason?
Let's pull
Is there a reason it's just been wiped from the map? Oh, dude, the Letterboxd page.
5 people have watched it.
Yeah, this isn't very substantial.
So we have 2 4 stars and 1 2.5 star. That's not helpful at all. Yeah. The film is sharp looking, but most seems like going to calculate attempts for Boots to embed himself in a classic cool guy iconography. It seems a little postury. Yeah, that sounds about right. Listening to this.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, if I don't have to see Boots dressing up as Mad Max and like trying to be cool, because I think the songs are cool. Maybe it works better in this context, you know?
Yeah, I mean, maybe what I'll try next time is I'll pop in Mad Max and play some of these songs while watching that. Who knows? Could work.
Maybe put on the drive jacket and film yourself driving around town, and then make an edit set to these songs. Maybe that's the...
It's gotta be it.
When Suicide Games is you drop your McDonald's Sprite, it spills in your car, and you're just there like you're just like lamenting in slow motion. The fucking this frame is spinning.
Can't imagine anything worse, dude. That's what I was thinking about when I dropped my Sprite.
God. Oh God. I think it's also. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I don't really have any more final thoughts, but you're about to say something.
I was gonna say I feel like good? It's interesting. We don't have much to talk about. It's like it's really good. It grows on you. There's some really good songwriting.
Yeah, I mean, isn't
it crazy? No knows who this guy is. Like,
it is pretty crazy, and I mean, I think it balanced that well because we had a lot of shit to say about Miku and everything.
My closing thought is it possible? You said he develops his own sound on this. Do you think it's possible that he doesn't have enough of a personality for people to like care about him to become a solo artist based on this?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Based on just the visions that this song gives me, it isn't anything that is like, well, I want some more from this guy.
Yeah.
And based off the person who one of the few people who watched Motorcycle Jesus, yeah, I think I captures it perfectly. I think it feels very 2015.
Yes.
Like, I could see just if it had a bigger budget or something, a lot of people being like, oh, dude, Motorcycle Jesus is so cool. And that's the Halloween costume a lot of misogynistic men were dressing up as for Halloween that year.
Hell yeah.
I don't know. I mean, didn't Mad Max Fury Road come out that same year? So, like...
Yeah.
Boots was like, curses!
I do think that one of the reasons I want to give this EP is because it's a really good EP, and it's all you really need from this guy. Like, there's sometimes they give you records like, oh, I'd really love to give you this also by this artist. And I was like, no, 5 songs, 5 great songs, 5 songs that are very thematically coherent and have an interesting perspective, like sound. And that's it. Yeah. We can just move on.
Sometimes that's it. Could have been 5 minutes. Yeah, it was good. All right. Yeah, I ain't got nothing else.
If someone has a copy of Motorcycle Jesus, I will do some disgusting things for a viewing.
I'll motorcycle in your Jesus, if you know what I mean.
Oh.
So, Danny, we're coming to a close here, but you know, it's spooky season. You been watching any horror movies lately?
Yeah, this weekend I would say I watched 3 of them, maybe 4, depending on how you categorize. The 4th one had vampires in it. I guess it's spooky season.
They're a little spooky.
I watched The Witch. Didn't do it for me.
I think that's understandable. I personally love that movie, but I can definitely see how someone's like, yeah, not my thing.
I don't know, man. The dialogue was a bit tough. I was like, it felt like watching the Round Hill Community Theater Shakespeare production at times, where I'm like, what? What'd you say?
Did you watch it with subtitles by chance?
No, I refuse to watch movies with subtitles, and I think if I need them, it's a fail. It's a failing of the film if you need subtitles to understand what's going on.
I'm the exact opposite. I always watch movies with subtitles. And the first time I watched The Witch, I felt the same way. I was like, I have no idea what anyone is saying right now.
I could follow it by the end, but the first 30 minutes, I was just like, what?
It's a little. I'm watching. I'm like, all right, so I'm gonna look at the Wikipedia article after this.
Like I could follow the plot. I couldn't necessarily follow the dialogue. But also we'll have another rant where we can. I fucking hate watching movies with subtitles unless it's like foreign, like unless I need them. It so many reasons it bothers me. Watched The Witch. I watched Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I watched.
You gave that a high review.
Probably my second favorite horror movie of all time.
Nice.
In that category. But yeah, and I watched some forgotten found footage movie. That was okay. Have you seen any spooky ghoul goblin slasher films lately?
Yeah, I watched a documentary about the Detroit Pistons bad boys.
Oh, ayo!
Does that count?
Bill Beer is the ultimate horror icon for what he did in the paint.
when he slashed Larry Bird.
Yeah.
I was terrified.
Move over, Jason.
I did watch Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th. A movie that I think is really boring now, but
the first one's not great.
But I did concede that, like, if I was watching that with my friends and we're like drinking a little bit, it'd be a great time. But watching it by yourself, wouldn't.
And the ending slaps.
Yeah, it does. It does come around. Yesterday I did a double feature of Rosemary's Baby and Hereditary.
Oh, bangers.
So yeah, so that was great.
Two of the best the genre have to offer.
Yeah.
Now, after watching Rosemary's Baby, are you willing to uncancel Roman Polanski?
I think I'm gonna cancel him more because, like, we didn't get to see Satan's, we didn't get to see his crucifix. You know what I mean? Like, we should have had a scene where it pans up from, like, his feet, and, like, it takes like a second before you start seeing head, and then it's just like,
I'm trying to see from tip to base.
Yeah, like, there should have been a dong hanging scene. Let's be real.
Most movies could benefit from some dong.
Like 98%. Like, if Woody in Toy Story was just letting it out, better movie.
Showing us his Woody, you know?
Yeah, better
it's
movie.
Like, why do they call him Woody? He doesn't look like he's made of wood. So what is, you know? What's he packing? What's he packing in those jeans?
He's a cowboy after all, you know? Watched Alien with some friends, so one of my friends watched that for the first time.
Would you fuck the xenomorph?
Oh, do you even need to ask? Come on. Look at it. It's like, purposely phallic.
She kind of slim thick with it, though, you know?
Yeah, she got a booty back there. I love to look up images of, like, behind the scenes of Alien and the guy, like, in the suit, because, like...
Is there a suit of him smoking a cigarette through the mouth hole in the costume?
Oh, I wish.
Because, like, there's that famous picture of Tim Curry during It, where he's smoking a cigarette in the clown costume.
Oh, it's so funny. I watched Scream, and then I did recently, for the first time, watch Saw in its entirety. From
that was your first time?
To end. First time watching that whole movie in its entirety. It's one of those things where, like, I can't believe I've never watched this from beginning to end. Maybe the most 2000s movie ever. Like, that shit really made me want to put on a backwards baseball cap, listen to some Korn, and play NFL Street.
Oh, yeah, like fucking SmackDown versus Raw 2K4 or whatever.
Yeah, get some Mountain Dew Code Red.
I will say, like, I think Saw, I mean... I think you alluded to you watched Saw because I wrote a very lengthy review of the newest Saw movie, Saw 10.
It was kind of part of it. Like, two friends of mine, they watched the entire series before the new Saw.
Why would you do that? There's like there's like 1.5 good movies in there.
Because they gotta get a kick out of some of that stuff.
I mean, I like torture porn, but those movies are just like watching that for like 10 movies if you count the spinoff. Like, that's
I don't know. I don't know why they did it, but every time I would check Letterboxd, it was like Saw 4, Spiral, and I'm like, all right, I know what you guys are clearly doing. But
I will say the last movie I saw in theaters with a particularly bad audience was the newest Saw 10. But I was like, this movie sucks. We're here. There are these dudes who walked in 35-minute late, stoned out of their mind with 5 guys. It kept being like, and we're like actively talking to the movie, and it added. I'm not gonna lie, it added, subtracted.
I think honestly, I'd be down for that. The 5 guys, come on. Yeah.
Well, I also have a bit of a a bit of my supervillain origin, a bit of my Joker origin story is rooted in the Saw franchise.
Okay.
I went to nerd camp the summer before 9th grade. And the thing everyone had a different like module, and my module was like comedy writing.
Oh god!
And basically we like the first 3 days was like learning the basics. Then it was like everyone writes a skit, edit it, and then we're gonna perform one in front of the rest of the camp.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that won was something called Nice Boys, which was a parody of Mean Girls. I did not think it was funny at all, but I never had seen the movie. My skit I thought was great, which in many ways portended this podcast, was Simon Cowell gets trapped in a saw trap, and his torture is being forced to listen to bad singers and say nice things, or else they like cut off his dick or something.
Oh my god.
And the punchline obviously is the last person he has to say nice things to and can't do it is Katy Perry. If you want the most,
that is yeah.
If you so want of its era, 2009. But yeah, in many ways, that skit I think precluded what we're doing right now.
I mean,
so.
No
one got it. No one else at Nerd Camp got it, and I was like, you people have no taste.
A lot of our humor has not changed since 7th grade. Let's be real.
Like the thing is, I could see that on like SNL. I'm sorry, like that was good.
I don't know if I could see it on SNL because I think it's too funny.
I could have seen it on like a $15 budget YouTube video from like Shane Dawson in 2009. I think that's what I was consuming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if we time traveled back to 2008 and talked to our middle school selves, like we would definitely think like, oh wow, these kids are lame as shit, but like they definitely be saying some stuff that's like, nah, that was funny.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, wow, they still got it. Well,
I would say, speaking of time travel,
we're time traveling to next month.
We're time traveling to next month, and I think the record I'm gonna give you really is a portal to an era, a time, the fallout from, a culture shattering event. I was gonna give you "Live Through This" by Hole, not to be confused with Twitter handle Dr. Hole. But Courtney loves Hole.
Yeah, it was the. I don't know if I want to see that.
Hater, I would. I do. I believe it is the first record that comes out after the death of Kurt Cobain. Okay. And in the same way people hated Yoko for ruining the Beatles, people not only hate Courtney Love for her personality, but a lot of people think that she murdered Kurt Cobain. So you can only imagine that was like in 1993, 94 when that happened. And the record, I think, kind of indirectly deals with it, but it's impossible to listen to it and not think of it in that context. It's a classic of the genre, and very excited for you to listen to it.
Awesome. Well, again, I'm time traveling, but still back to middle school. So I guess you time traveled to November, but then you went back to 94. And in a way, if one could say Miku is symbolic of cringe era, maybe this band is also symbolic with cringe era, but
Vampire Weekend?
Oh no, they're coming one day. But I think it's high time we talked about The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance.
Oh God! All right.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. I'm hitting you with two big ones, Miku and an MCR.
It's gonna be a real genre classic.
It's gonna be. Oof. I mean, if you ain't tuning in November, I don't know what to tell you, but I think. I mean, I don't really think I'd have to say I think. I think it's pretty much a fact that is a culturally defining record. And I don't think you ever listened to it before, right? I think you said that once.
Yeah, so I avoided all pop punk like the plague. But I had one of my first friends who got me into music that was not classic rock was really into Green Day. And he made me listen to the title track of this song. And obviously, there was a meme in one of the Lego forums I was in middle school that would involve hijacking a thread. Yep. So I'm intimately familiar with this song. Honestly, re-listened to it not that long ago and have thoughts. So, but I'm not sure I'm ready for a full, hour of Gerard Way. Could really drive me in a bad way. That was really that pun was almost as bad as how I might feel. But
oh yeah, you're gonna be crying. You're gonna be maybe even shitting a little. We'll see what happens. But I felt that it was appropriate. October, and that album came out in October in 2006, so it's a seasonal listen.
I mean, I'm excited. It was bound to happen. I'm glad it's this first and not Fall Out Boy, because there's one friend I have who is so obsessed with Fall Out Boy, I'd be afraid that she'd kill me in my sleep if I talk shit. So,
I mean, I think MCR is superior, but
whoa,
hey, we will save those thoughts for next time. But Danny, you have any parting words to our loyal listeners out there?
Did you know the Bing AI image generator is just absolutely depleting the water supply of the United States, because it requires like gallons of fresh water to make a single picture of Timothée Chalamet in a binky. The hellscape we live in is real, but at least we have music to escape, and hopefully this podcast. We'll see you next month.
Goodbye.